Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today we'll be doing this setup right here. It is a Winnie and the Pooh baby shower theme, and we are doing on a backdrop, and we have this gold sweet cart table provided by the venue. So let's get started. The colors we are using are, well, they were requested by the client. They sent a photo, and it was from the color palette of Pop Fesco. If you guys heard of them, I believe they have a shop on Etsy where you can purchase like the balloons and the color palettes that they offer. So I mimicked some of the colors that they had on the palette that the client wanted. So I used blue slate double stuffed inside of a white. I used eucalyptus inside of white. I use blush, chocolate inside blush, and then yellow inside of white sand, and then I double stuff white sand into white sand. And these clusters I am using is 6 balloons, and I only had the 18-inch or a large balloon inside the blue slate and the, I want to say, the nude, so the chocolate inside the blush. And right now I'm just building the body of the garland. I'm taking those clusters of 6 balloons and I'm tying them together, and then I am attaching them to the body that I already have made. I'm not following any kind of pattern here. I'm just picking up the balloons and trying to spread them out as evenly as possible. And when you see when I first put those first 3 clusters on, I try to take as much as possible. So I took 3 clusters with me and tied them together, and I did that because I was using a step ladder and I didn't want to go and keep adding a cluster over top of another cluster. And I'm using fishing line to attach the cluster to the sweetheart. And when I arrived on site, because I didn't inflate anything until I arrived on site, only thing I did at home was the 5-inch balloons. As you guys know, they are tedious, so I did those at home. So when I do inflate on site, when I have a lot of time to do so, I do still bring my mattress bag, because typically I like to inflate and put my balloons in a mattress bag, so they're not all over the place like right now. But I did have some inside the mattress bag and some just was coming out, so I still like to bring it with me, just so when I do inflate the balloons I can put those clusters inside the mattress bag. And as you see now, I'm just continuing. So this is the same 3-step method that I do. I build the body, and then after I build the body, I will, step 2 would be basically building the curve. So right now I'm still building the body, and I wanted to go from that backdrop behind the sweetheart table and all the way to the floor. So that's basically what my goal is. And I use fishing line on the sweetheart table. Everything that I did on the sweetheart table, I did use fishing line. On the backdrop itself, at the very top, I used a 260 cube balloon. And right now and I've been doing lately is I've been building and tying my rig points as I go. I find it easier to do that, because if I do my rig points before, then I basically have to follow that design that I'm using on the I have to follow the design of the rig points, basically, if that makes sense. So if I'm tying my rig points as I go, then I can move my balloons and shape them however way I like it, and wherever spot that I like it at, then that's where I would tie my next rig point at. And right now I'm just trying to drag it out on the floor, and that's pretty much how the body will be. And I'm going to tie it in one more place. And another thing that I do when I'm on site, before I jump into that, right now I am now moving on to step 2, which is thickening the garland. And I am just adding these clusters where I want to basically add more definition on the garland. So this is where I want to add some more depth to. So I'm going to add those 2 clusters, and I'm tying everything neck to neck, you guys. The only time I don't tie a cluster neck to neck is when I basically having a hard time tying it neck to neck, and that's when I would reach for that 260 Q balloon. If you're a beginner, it's definitely hard to tie those two. To tie your neck to neck is not easy. It takes a lot of practice. So if you're struggling, then I would suggest using that 260 balloon to, wrap it around and attach the clusters. If not, then, just try really hard to tie your neck to neck. And I'm blowing up my 24-inch balloons. The 24-inch, I only had them in the nude and the eucalyptus inside white. And actually, I think I had it in one more. Or was it just those two? Oh, I had it in white sand inside white sand. So I had it in those three. And I'm going there and placing them in different areas that I want to basically, add their thickness, add more definition. And now, so that's what I'm doing here basically. But I was about to say something else. Oh, when I arrive on site, as I mentioned that I like to inflate my balloons if I have time to do it on site and put it inside the mattress bag. Something else I do is I like to use everything that I inflated so far, and then once I use all the clusters that I inflated, then I go back and see what else I need and start inflating more balloons. So that's another good thing that I do. I like to, everything I inflate, I try to use all the clusters that I can if the colors, matches what I like. And then I will go back and inflate some more balloons or more clusters that I think is needed to finish whatever design I am doing. And as you see, I'm attaching a cluster, and you want to attach it at two places. I attached that cluster that I just added to the, I believe that was eucalyptus inside the white, and then I attached it to the nude beside it as well. And I purposely added that cluster, the white sand that I had next to that large 24-inch balloon on the floor. I purposely grabbed the one with the 18-inch balloon inside it because it's a great contrast when you have the 18-inch balloon right next to the 24-inch balloon. So that I purposely grabbed that cluster. And now I'm just attaching that bottom cluster to the sweetheart table as well with some fishing line again. And as you see, I am stepping back as I'm adding these clusters or 24-inch balloons. And I don't do it often now. I don't know if I'm just starting to get a hang of things. So I try to step back every time I add something. As you see, soon I add a cluster, I step back to look at it to see if I like the placement that I'm using, that is at. So I try to step back as much as I can when I'm adding these clusters just to see if I like where it's at. And, if I can't step back or if I forget to step back, then I do it maybe, two clusters down the line or something like that. But most of the time I try to step back and look at adding each cluster. So I finished adding everything that I like so far. My phone was dying, so I had to put it on the charger. So the bottom part, I kind of skipped it a little bit, but we'll go back over there when it's time to add those 5-inch balloons. So here for the backdrop, this is just a vinyl backdrop that we use, that the venue had already. And I end up asking for some clips because when I try to use the 260 on the pole, it just moved the backdrop. As you see, I'm trying to put it back over the pole. So I ended up basically ripping it off the pole, and once I had the clips, then I tied the 260 on the clips so the backdrop won't move at all. This is me right now asking for the clips. So before we actually decide to move everything a little bit later, as you see that teddy bear or that Winnie and the Pooh, well, it's still a teddy bear on the table, we ended up moving that. So it became really empty, and when you guys see me making this right now, I was basically just going to do like a little flood coming out from the corner of the table down to the ground. But once we ended up moving that Winnie and the Pooh off the table, and we had moved this, I guess you can see like one of those cloud clusters that we had pretending to, as the bear was pretending to hold. You guys will see a little bit at the end, as I didn't get a chance to record that. But you will see that I added some additional clusters actually on the wall. And everything that I did on the wall for this setup, I used a command hook. The client, the venue owner is the person I was in contact with. So we was all there at the same time, and she had no problem with me using the command hook on the wall. And I actually didn't even, I mean, they always suggested, clean the wall, and which I do sometimes. Clean the wall, make sure it's dry, and then put the command hook on. I absolutely did not do it this time, and I don't even know, I can't even say I forgot. I just didn't do it. But everything stayed, and I didn't have any problems with anything falling off. So that was good. And the trick I do with my command hooks, I don't wrap, so I put the 260 on before I put it on the wall, but I don't actually just tie it and then wrap that 260, because I feel like it causes more tension. So what I do is, when I tie it on the actual command hook, I make a loop at the end of the 260, so basically that it can go directly around the balloon. And if this don't make sense, I'm going to try to get a close-up, maybe next video or next setup that I do. If I have to use command hooks, I'll try to get a close-up on how I do it. So I basically don't even tie the two. I tie the two ends together, so it makes some kind of, circle, hoop, or whatever you can use. And then I put that I wrap that around one balloon, so it just stays in one place and I don't have to wrap each one. So right now I'm just continue to add those clusters. Some of them I was adding quads, and then I ended up going back to add those two dupes that I ended up taking out, because I thought they needed a little bit more balloons. So I was going and adding quads at first. And typically when I'm doing the very, very bottom, I don't like to use a cluster at the very bottom, because then it'd be too bulky. I like using just a quad balloon, because it does give the bottom that pointy look. So most of the times when I'm doing the very bottom, as you see, I just added that dupe back to that cluster of the nude, because it was originally a quad, but I like it better when it was a cluster. It's more thicker. But yeah, when I'm doing a very, very bottom, I typically like to just grab a quad and not a cluster. Remember, a quad is 4 balloons and a cluster is 6 or 8 or 10. Anything above 4 is a cluster. So 5, 6, 7, 8. Most of the time my clusters are even numbers, because I inflate 2 balloons at one time. So, but as I was saying, when I do the bottom of my garlands, I usually like to do a quad, because that quad can make a more pointy look versus the cluster. It will look more bulky. So that's what I do at the bottom. And on the right side, I'm just adding 2 clusters just to give it a little something. I've been struggling a little bit with, well, I don't know how not to go above and beyond. Let's just say that. So even if the client, because I now charge per foot for my setups, but I feel like I will always provide more than what the client actually paid for, because when you get on site, I guess for me it's kind of hard to, you always end up doing a little bit of extra. I don't go on site and say, oh, you only paid for 20 feet, so I'm going to inflate, because one cluster is a foot, so I'm going to inflate 20 clusters, and whatever I use and whatever I make up with those 20 clusters, what you get. I just can't operate like that, unfortunately. So this setup, I definitely went above and beyond, but I don't mind. At the end of the day, I'm providing a service, and I would never want to leave, and the service is not up to my expectations, number one. So I mean, it's your business. If you want to just do what you can, and it's not like I don't have the balloons as well. So I just always go above and beyond. But again, your business. If you can't provide any more service, or maybe you're on a time crunch, you got to leave, you can't do anything extra, that's totally up to you. and you know, that's your business and however way you want to run it. So I'm just, you guys, just sharing what I do here sometimes. But now I'm adding on those 5-inch balloons. As I mentioned, I inflate all my 5 inches at home, and my 5 inches, I inflate them to about 3 or 3.5 inches. I inflate my 5 inches still on a pump, and I use one pump exactly, and they all come out the same size. And when I try to use it on like my sizing machine, sizing, I guess, that I have, it couldn't fit in a 3-inch, and it was too small for a 4-inch. So I assumed that it was around 3.5 inches, but 3.5 inches is the perfect size to me, because anything bigger than that, then you are over inflating your 5-inch balloons, and then it will look a little bit, to me, it don't look right on a garland, because when you have those overinflated 5 inches, they now starting to blend in with the clusters, and I don't like that. I like my 5 inches to just detail the look and not actually look like another cluster, if that makes sense, you guys. So I feel like that's a huge tip, because before, when I was unconsciously doing it, my 5 inches were, and this was not all the time, it was that one time I noticed, and I was like, why are my garland looking like this? Everything just blended together. My details didn't look like details. And I noticed, like, my 5 inches are huge. They overinflated. The color is stretched out. It doesn't look right. And that's when I started to make the conscious decision, like, okay, I have to size these all the same size, because before I would be pumping them like 1, 2, 3, 4, then letting the air out. They was all different sizes, which is fine if you, of course, it's the organic look. To me, I try to stick to the same size, because a 5 inch is going to look like a 5 inch in the picture, 11 inch is going to look like an 11 inch in the picture, the 18 inch is going to look like the 18 inch in the picture. So having 2 5 inches inflating 1 to 2.5 and 1 to 3, I think is just, I think it's just a waste of time. In my opinion, I think it's just a waste of time, because it's still going to look the same in the picture. What really gives it a organic look is having those 4 different sizes in the actual garland. So you need to have that 5 inch, that 11 inch, that 18 inch, that 24 inch. And then you don't have to have each size, which I learned over time, you don't have to have each size in every color, but you should have all 4 sizes in the actual garland. And I hope this information helped you guys. And this is the final look. This is how everything came out, and you see the little cloud I made on the side. And again, I will link all the information in the description box, and the link to the clear adhesive hook and the command hooks that I use in the description box. And please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, leave any questions you guys may have, and I see you in the next video.